What's happening in Quad Cities? What's happening? What's happening? Davenport and Rock Island. Bettendorf and Molly. Don't forget about East Moline. What's happening? What's happening?
Welcome to a new episode of What's Happening QC, sponsored by Seifert Building Supplies. Today we have on the show Mary Allen-Des Jardins, who is the co-founder of the Uplifting CareGivers Association, or UCA. And UCA is a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting healthcare caregivers through direct financial assistance and essential resources. Their mission is to empower those who care for others by helping them navigate personal hardships such as emergency expenses, car repairs, educational costs, childcare, and basic needs. Mary, I understand that you have a big event coming up on August 30th at LeClaire Park.
Yes.
What is the end of summer bash?
Oh, it's going to be a great, fun bash. We're going to have live music from 11 to 6. Mm-hmm. We have a violinist kicking it off. We have a guitarist after that. And then we have Smooth Groove, who everybody knows in this area.
Absolutely.
So it's going to be fun. But in addition to that, we have bounce houses. We have craft tables. We have, food trucks, ice cream, a lot of fun games, your old-fashioned carnival games,
cool.
That like 30 years ago,
right.
Right. Hot dog eating contest.
Ooh.
And the hot dogs are sponsored by Mendoza,
okay.
Street dogs. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited for that sponsorship.
Yeah.
So it should be like a ton of fun.
That sounds like
for
a great fun.
everybody to come out. And basically we're raising funds for caregivers. Mm-hmm. And, a definition of caregiver is anybody that gives care to another.
Okay.
And so you could be a nurse, you give care. You could be a police officer. You could be a firefighter. You could be a CNA or a direct care provider. Uh-huh. So that is, over the years, we've had to give a lot of love to our caregivers, to be able to, boost morale, help with an occasional bill here and there. Mm-hmm. And so we thought, hey, let's do a nonprofit to do that, to give love back to our caregivers and our healthcare providers.
Well, that's awesome. So is this event open to anybody in the community?
Anybody, everybody from age 0 to 99 and beyond, so just everybody.
Well, that sounds great. Let's get into a little bit of what is UCA and how long have you been an organization, and give me the story.
Okay. Well, if you need to go back maybe 30 years, I have a son with pretty significant autism, very behavioral. Mm-hmm. And I was that caregiver years ago that we want to provide for now. Mm-hmm. Lonely in that, caring, providing for their, searching out the resources, trying to come up with the best practices for a child with autism. Mm-hmm. And didn't have a lot of support. So fast forward, I did a group home situation and trained my staff. And then now we have, multiple houses with a lot of other significantly impaired and profound individuals that we provide care for.
Wow.
And over the years, I noticed that I was spending 90% of my time really working with the caregivers, building them up, raising their mindset from victim to victor mentality, helping them occasionally with a pop tire or towing, or even helping homeless caregivers get into housing so that they could retain employment and, stay working. Mm-hmm. So we decided that we need to do this as a nonprofit because not only is there direct care providers in a lot of agencies in the Quad City area, but there's also nurses and teachers and police officers and healthcare workers, and we're all caregivers.
Right.
And not to mention the unpaid caregivers that provide care for their home, in their home for their child with disability or their adult parents.
Wow.
Yeah. that might have Alzheimer's or dementia. So it could be anything like that.
Wow. So just on behalf of the community, thank you so much for the work
you're
that you do.
welcome.
It sounds like
Yeah.
it helps a lot of people in more ways than one.
We hope to make a huge impact. We really do. Yeah, we have a lot of love to give. We also want to promote burnout prevention, create support groups, as well as give some financial assistance.
Well, that's awesome.
So,
Well, Mary's going to stick around and we're going to talk a little bit more on the podcast. Again, August 30th at LeClaire Park. It's the end of summer bash, and you said 11 to 6?
11 to 6, everybody come out.
That sounds awesome. Well, you can find more of this conversation wherever you get your podcast or on YouTube at WVIKQC. As always, you can find us on our website, www.wvik.org.
What's Happening, Quad Cities is made possible by support from Seifert Building Supplies, inviting their homeowners and contractors to take their projects to the next level. Learn more at seifertlumber.com.
So, Mary, let's talk a little bit more generally about challenges that caregivers face, because I've heard in the news that it is one of the, possibly least paid and most needed jobs out
Yes.
there. So talk to me about that.
Yes. Well, given the fact, just from some of the research that I've been doing, there's over 300,000 caregivers just in the Quad City area.
Wow.
That includes anybody from, it could be a teacher, it could be a nurse, it could be a direct care provider, providing care for, whoever needs it.
Right.
And the need is such, there's a great need because burnout. Is high.
Right.
And sometimes the pay isn't at where it needs to be.
Right.
If I was to advocate, I would advocate for higher pay, that they should
Right.
be paid the highest.
Because it's hard to care for others when you're struggling to care for yourself as well. So.
Yeah. And some of that is dirty jobs, that you have to, you're changing diapers, you're wiping faces, you're providing enrichment. And who enriches the caregivers?
Right.
Who's there to kind of say, hey, you got this, and let's keep going.
Right.
So UCA would be that person. And even if there's not a financial need, I just think of, years past when I was providing a lot of direct care.
Right.
The smallest of texts or the smallest of phone calls, or even a quick little note that got sent to my house made the world of difference. Right. So we would like to, one of our smaller programs would be create a care drop package, so that you in the community who might know somebody who is just being a superstar and a champion and providing it all at such high levels of care, you're going to nominate that caregiver, and then we will provide a spontaneous care drop for that person. And it also could be as simple as, hey, will you call this caregiver, to have, like that line of support.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And I'm sure, feeling seen in the sense of, having this event this summer to maybe they can come and have some fun, and also the community can see the impact that all these caregivers have.
Yeah, the entrance fee is only $5, but the caregivers get extra raffle tickets, for our raffles. And we had a lot of community support from the community as far as raffle baskets and wonderful gift cards from, the community, as well as some great sponsors that are doing some wonderful things for us.
That's great. So let's talk a little bit more about UCA, the organization itself. How long have you guys been established as a nonprofit, and what does the organization look like?
Okay. Well, right now it's 100% volunteer. We're gleaming a lot of support from Quad City service providers.
Okay.
And a lot of their staff are providing support to kick off the event.
Right.
And it's only been in existence for about a year.
Okay.
We did a small fundraiser last year, which was wildly successful, and raising $2,000.
Okay.
Now, $2,000 in the big scheme of things isn't a huge amount, but we were able to provide Thanksgiving meals and Christmas meals, as well as QCSP, Quad City Service Providers, did a toy run.
Okay.
And we were able to gather up a lot of toys. So we fed families on both sides of the river, Moline, Rock Island, and Davenport, to provide caregivers in need with the food that they need, to provide a nice Thanksgiving and Christmas meal, as well as toys for a handful of families.
Well, that's really great. So only being in existence for a year, is this the first end of summer bash?
This is absolutely the first. So if you come out, it's going to be, it's going to be historical, right? So come out and support us. Right. And
so 10 years from now, we can all say we were at the first.
Yes. And we're going to take pictures so we can even show that on a slide 10 years from now with thousands and thousands of people.
Awesome.
But yeah, this is the very first year. And we've been gearing up for this for probably about 6-7 months and preparing and having a great time. So
well, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I like to get guests to break out of their thinking about their organizations for a little while and just talk about living here in the Quad Cities. And
absolutely.
I understand, running a new nonprofit and doing all the things that you do probably doesn't leave a ton of free time. But what do you love about the Quad Cities when you're not at work?
Quad Cities has become my home, and I moved here probably about 19 years ago. And I came to Iowa because I heard that there was better funding for long-term care. And I have a son with pretty significant behavioral issues. So we came into this area. I found that because of the significance of his behaviors, that he would have been a really tough one to get services for. He was extremely self-injurious, extremely aggressive behaviors, severe property damage, behaviors, basically, 911 response type of behaviors. Yeah. That a lot of families with autism, with children on the spectrum, especially the severe and profound, category, they deal with behaviors every day.
Right.
And lack of support, lack of family support, maybe you're doing it by yourself. You're just this lone little beacon in the night trying to provide services or research for services. Right. In my particular case, I had to do a deep dive and go, I need autism. I need to learn everything about autism and how to manage the behaviors, because I'm going to be the caregiver that's going to be there lifelong, and make sure that he gets proper assistance or proper care. So I went to every single workshop I could possibly go to, talk to the biggest behaviorist in the whole United States, and practically begged each one of them to come to my house and teach me as his caregiver how to teach him. And because I even remember telling, some of the bigger names, going, I know the kid is smart. He super smart, problem solving. He can connect the dots. He can figure out how to get on top of the fridge and, grab that bag of chocolate that I hid up there. Right. And he even had a real keen sense of smell. Like I could hide chocolates in my purse without telling him and walk into the room where he was, and he could beeline right to, Wow. So he had some pretty interesting, superpowers, let's say.
Right. Yeah.
But he didn't know how to communicate, and I didn't know how to communicate, and I didn't know how to teach him how to communicate. So then started the journey on how to teach this child with autism communication skills. So we ran into a couple of BCBAs and pretty researched BCBAs, Mark Sundberg, his brother Carl, Dr. Vince Carbone is another name. I haven't talked to them in a couple years, but but those are the big names in the field. Right. And I ran into Mark Sundberg, Dr. Mark Sundberg, and I begged him, hey, come to my house. He said, well, I can't come to your house, but I can send my brother, Dr. Carl Sundberg. So he came, and to my shock, he was he was amazing, but he pointed out a few things that I, as a mom, was doing to reinforce poor behavior.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
And that was my first experience at verbal behavior or applied behavior analysis or any kind of real therapy for my child.
Right.
We had been doing traditional speech therapy, and it just wasn't going to cut it.
Right.
So, when my son Mark would scream and yell, I knew that he wanted a cookie.
Right.
So I would deliver a cookie, right, for Mark. And he would stop crying. And I'm like, yeah, okay.
There's a win.
Woo, we got to win.
Yeah.
Okay. What I didn't know back then was I was accidentally reinforcing his behavior.
Right.
So the next time around, he would scream louder.
Right.
So then I ended up with a child that was screaming and yelling 24/7.
Yeah.
Because he wanted, his needs met, right? And that was his verbal behavior on how to get things.
Yeah.
So, dear Dr. Carl Sundberg pointed that out to me, and I was devastated as a mom, going, I'm making the behaviors worse, right?
Yeah.
So I slowly learned how to turn that around and how to teach my son sign language, and we first started out with teaching motor skills, fine motor skills, gross motor skills, doing simple imitation skills, do this, clap your hands, do this, raise your arms, do this, touch your nose. And then we morphed from gross motor skills into fine motor skills.
Okay.
And so the first 6 months, at that time, he'd been doing traditional speech therapy from about 3 years to nine or 10. And the doctors had told me he's never gonna speak.
Okay.
Or communicate. And I wasn't willing to accept the fact that he'll never communicate.
Right.
So then I pulled him out of school and developed my own little program for him.
Right.
And we started teaching him, first imitation skills and then some compliance skills, because I knew I needed him to listen and to basically to stop running, because he was a runner.
Right.
And I actually started running because I knew, and I'm grossly out of shape.
You would have to keep up with them.
I knew that I had to be faster than the kid was.
Right.
Because we lived on not a busy street, but there was big trucks that would zoom by, and the kid at 7 was a runner.
Okay.
And so I knew that I had to outrun him to save his life. And a couple of times I had to do that.
Wow.
And so we started running. And I said, if you're going to run, we're going to both run. So luckily back then we were living in Homewood, Illinois.
Okay.
And there was a field in the back of our house. We backed up to a park, right?
Sure.
And so we ran circles in that field. And unfortunately, he hates to run now.
Okay.
So we ran the run out of him, I guess.
Right.
But he's an amazing individual. If you look at him and really, really get to know him, there's a twinkle in his eye.
Right.
And, if you're having a bad day, spend some time with a guy on the spectrum, and or anybody with a disability, and you're going to have a good day, after that, because their good days are really amazing, and you have so much fun. So I'm almost an advocate for, getting into the field, getting into the field of caregiving and getting into the field of behavior analytical work.
Yeah.
There's a lot of autism centers, in this area now, which are amazing. But when I moved here, in 2005, I think it was, no autism centers.
Right.
So I actually helped the Moline Autism Center get off the ground. That was the very first one. So I taught them everything I knew about ABA, which is applied behavior analysis, and verbal behavior.
Wow.
And I'm sure it's morphed into something different now, because it's been kind of a long time.
Right.
But and there's so many different therapies that families could look into, but now we have like 6 or 7 autism centers, which is mind-blowing, and a lot more support because of the internet. Now, back in the day when I was first trying to research what this was, the first book somebody gave me was Bettelheim's book, which is the refrigerator mother syndrome, basically, that autism was caused because you didn't give them enough attention. Well, BS.
Right.
It's like, I have a lot of love to give, and I could love them. That's the easy part.
Right.
But how are we going to teach them?
Right.
And that's what I didn't know. So that was kind of what set my path on the journey. And there's tons of, we could spend all day. I could give you story after story about all the adventures of, Mark and I's adventures.
Yeah.
And really, a lot of people didn't know and still might not know how to deal with problematic behavior. And even, and I'm happy to see, like police response have task force. The Davenport police force has a special task force, and especially trained police officers to handle 911 interventions with adults with disability that might be having an issue. And they're so kind and wonderful. At Quad City Service Providers, we've had amazing police force, a response with such kindness and tenderness that it just makes my heart melt.
Well, that's awesome. And what a powerful story.
Yeah.
I'll wrap up our conversation today with a little bit of my own personal story. And I have a request for advice, I suppose.
Okay.
So about 10 years ago, my brother, who's 3 years older than me, had a traumatic brain hemorrhage and had a less than 1% chance to live. And thankfully, he's healthier than ever in terms of physical health and still with us. But it's becoming clear that, life management in terms of, making sure that the income that he does have through the job that he's able to have is put in the proper places, making sure that, the evaluations he needs for his disability payments happen and all that kind of stuff. So obviously growing up with my brother, I never expected that this would be a possibility of something that I would need to do.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I'm in this, I suppose, possibly the first midlife, just recently turning 40.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to think about what are the things that I'm going to need to do in order to be a good caregiver for my brother, but also to see this as an overall improvement to my life, because I imagine spending a lot of time with your son, or in my case, being able to spend a lot of time with my brother is going to be a great time. But it is a transition from, at least for me, kind of developing a relationship with a little bit of a new person. And so anyway, that's the soup of things that are up here.
Yeah.
Talk to me about maybe some things that one who might be in my situation should start to do to prepare themselves for it.
Well, what an incredible, foresight for you to, your life will be altered and changed forever. And viewing it as a blessing, I'm a totally different person than I would have been without this experience, right?
Right.
I think I'm a better human than I would have been. Less shallow, deep. I appreciate life at a greater level.
Right.
So if you are caring for a person, look beyond what's, the duties.
Right.
And this is, kind of a calling, and you're somebody's guardian angel, because you're going to advocate for that person.
Right.
At the same time, though, you need to balance the hours that you put into that relationship, as well as providing some hours that you're going to self-nurture, and making sure that your bucket is full. If you look on our website, there's a wonderful animation. Actually, my other son, Jonah, he drew this animation, and it talks about that caregiver, role, and it has this cute little wonderful person that's a caregiver getting up in the morning, her battery's full, and then going to work and giving it her all, killing it all day, and then when she comes home, her battery's depleted.
Right.
So really being aware of when your battery's depleted. And making sure that you're filling that battery and really charging your batteries so that you can be the best person that you can be, to advocate for your brother. The other thing is to look at doing a trust, a special needs trust, and there's a lot of lawyers that can do that. Also, probably guardianship is a good thing.
Right.
That, you'll have to, again, you can fill out your own guardianship papers.
Right.
You can file them, or whatever. But and then also looking at what services that your brother might need.
Right.
In our particular case, we're in Iowa. And there's services here in Illinois too. I'm just not as familiar with the Illinois services. Right. So I might have to be researching that a little bit more. But in Iowa, we provide 24/7 care for adults with disability, and that's Quad City Service Providers. Okay. And we take the most significantly impaired individuals and provide an adult-rich environment. Because, we look at rights and restrictions. We look at, individual with disability has the same rights as you and I. Right. To go to Starbucks, and I can go to Starbucks, 20 times a day, right, and get a coffee, if my budget allows, right? But so we look at their behavior programs, and we put in place a very individualized service plan for them. And that goes along with helping staff, staffing and training staff behaviorally, and really looking at a good match for that individual. Wow. I don't know if your brother going to stay home with you, or he lives independently?
He's currently living with my parents. So I think that in our, base level discussions, they're doing some pre-monetary planning for when this transition happens. So it's likely that he will, I think perfect case scenario today would be living on the property with us, but with his own space. Yeah. So,
there's agencies in the area probably that could provide what's called hourly service. Okay. So you'd have to look at what agencies in the area would provide that. That when you need a break, and he needs a break from you too. Right. My son is living a very independent 36-year-old life. Wow. Enriched. Yesterday he went swimming with his roommates. And it's a house with 3 other gentlemen with pretty significant behaviors. Yeah. And very big guys. My son is 36. Yeah. He just turned 36, and I can't even keep track of the ages anymore. But how old are you? Well, you're way younger than me. But right. But he lives with 2 other adult guys, and he has staff. And right. The team of staff that have come together, they're a bunch of guys, with all different backgrounds. But they have created this bond that's just beautiful. Wow. You talk to them and they go, hey, Mark's my brother. Wow. It's not a job for them. Right. This is my family. Wow. So, and that's such a beautiful thing. So if you can find staff that would come in and do activities and provide that adult enriched living for him, that of course has, knowledge in brain injury. Right. Because that's we do have services through our agency for BI individuals. Yeah. Yeah. And, it's a different modality than an individual with autism. Right. And we're getting into elderly care as well. Okay. And that's, you treat each individual, based off of their strengths, their skills, their likes, their dislike. Wow.
Well, you mentioned your son having superpowers, and I'll say you have superpowers as well.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
Thank you again so much for, developing this nonprofit, and, for everything that you do for your family, but for all the families here in the Quad Cities.
I have an incredible team. I have a co-founder with the nonprofit, and she's been amazing. And then she also is our HR specialist for Quad City Service Providers. Wow. But we have an amazing team, and I didn't start out with anybody, right? Right. And really the advice I would give you or anybody that's looking on to take that role is, who's your tribe? Who's your support person? Who's the person that you can call in the middle of the night and go, I just need to say hi. Right. I have an incredible friend who's totally positive. I have not heard her say one negative word about anybody, right?
No matter how hard you try.
No matter how hard. And I've been looking. Exactly. Right?
You'll find that one person.
Yeah. My kids call it toxic positivity. Yeah, but But it's not. It's just wonderful. So like get that one person that that when you're down, you can be lifted up. So I called my friend Deb and go, "Hey Deb, I need you to bump me up. I need you to, really like talk me out of this bad mood or whatever."
Right.
I know within 2 seconds. I'm like, "Okay, Deb, I love you too." You know what I mean? 'Cause she, ultimate cheerleader type of thing. And I know my team at Quad City Service Providers, they're an incredible team of people that have gone over and above. So we call them my dragon slayers, because there are many a times I would walk into the office, growing a business, and there's headaches in growing the business.
Right.
That I would go, "Okay, what problem are you going to solve today?" And get out your imaginary shield and your imaginary,
And go for it.
and yeah, let's cut them down. Let's see how quickly we can solve these problems. But really having a tribe of people who like boost you up and go, you got this, and he's incredible. The bad days might be bad, like I know with Mark. His bad moments, it's not even a bad day. Bad moment
Right.
can be pretty frickin' intense, right? His good moments are like amazing.
Wow.
His smile just brightens up your life.
That's awesome.
All you have to do is just go and sit with him for a second and go, "Okay, I just needed a little Marky fix."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that.
So you'll find challenges, but there's nothing that you can't solve.
100%. Well, thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah.
I hope you'll come back next time you guys have an event. Or
Oh,
something
absolutely.
you'd like to
We'll
share.
be here. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for listening and watching on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Again, I'd love it if folks would subscribe however they listen or watch this show. Thanks again to Seifert Building Supplies for their support, and we'll see you next time on the next What's Happening Quad Cities.